I didn't criticize the Prime Minister. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. And unfortunately, there was a story that was done, which was, generally fine, but it didn't put in what I said about the Prime Minister. And I said tremendous things. And fortunately, we tend to record stories now, so we have it for your enjoyment if you'd like it. But we record when we deal with reporters. It's called fake news. We solve a lot of problems with the good old recording instrument.
Donald Trump upended everything in his tour of Europe this week. He took what can only be described as a wrecking ball to every possible norm of American foreign policy over the last century, blasting American allies, bringing chaos to the NATO summit, and even suggesting the U.S. would withdraw from NATO if members didn't increase their defense spending. Though the French president says behind closed doors, Trump never issued that threat to the NATO members' faces. And things reached peak weirdness during his visit with the British Prime Minister, when Trump denied making critical comments about Theresa May's Brexit strategy, even though those comments were recorded on tape in an interview with the Rupert Murdoch-owned British tabloid The Sun.
I did give Theresa, who I like, I did give her my views on what she should do and how she should negotiate. And she didn't follow those views. I would actually say she probably went the opposite way. I think the deal that she's striking is not what the people voted on. It's a much different deal than the people voted on. It was not the deal that was in the referendum.
Joining me now is Bobby Ghosh, columnist and editor at Bloomberg Opinion, Nayyera, former State Department senior advisor, and Dana Milbank of the Washington Post. I want to come back to this weird, negative relationship that Donald Trump seems to have with the female leaders in Europe, Theresa May and Chancellor Angela Merkel. But I want to start with this whole chaos thing. Donald Trump starts off at this breakfast getting into this huge sort of negative back and forth with the leader of the EU over Germany and its spending. Trump says, let's just play it. Let's play, this is soundbite one in Brussels on Wednesday.
Many countries owe us a tremendous amount of money for many years back, where they're delinquent, as far as I'm concerned. Germany is totally controlled by Russia. Germany, as far as I'm concerned, is captive to Russia because it's getting so much of its energy from Russia.
Okay, that's not true. They don't owe us money.
No, they don't know money. That is not how it works. It's amazing how often that expression comes up. That's not how it works. When you think when Donald Trump says something about foreign policy, should they be spending more? Yes. Have they committed to spending more? They already did. They've already committed to that long before Donald Trump came on the political stage. They've agreed. There's a deadline by which time they're going to spend.
It's a target. We're going to put that up on the screen just as you're talking, as a graph that shows allies' defense spending in 2014 versus 2018 estimates. So they're not delinquent. The light blue that you see there is the percent of GDP each ally spent in 2014. The goal is to devote 2% of their national budget by 2024. It's a long-term goal.
Yes, it's a long-term goal, and they have all committed to doing it. They will spend more money. That's not the money. That's not money that's going to come into American pockets. Let's be clear about that. Some of them might buy American armaments, but probably not.
Right.
But the other thing that he said and that clip you showed, where he says Germany is a captive of Russia.
Right.
That is especially humiliating for Angela Merkel, a woman who grew up in East Germany.
Correct.
If anybody understands what it is like to be a captive of Russia, it's Angela Merkel.
Yes.
So to say that it's not even a dog whistle; it's a dog trumpet.
Yeah.
That he's pointing directly at Angela Merkel.
At the same time, he's also criticizing her over immigration, saying she's letting too many people into Germany that are the wrong sort.
And he said the same thing about May. He's saying Europe has allowed too many immigrants. It's spoiling European culture. That is classic racist speak. That is the kind of thing that the sort of lunatic fringe of the right wing says all the time.
But it also empowers the people who are trying to unseat Angela Merkel. Let's be clear. The far right wants her out, and he's trying to empower. I want to go, Dana, to the fact that it doesn't seem that our allies in NATO really know quite what to do with Trump. They've tried sort of appeasing and accommodating him. We remember that Emmanuel Macron, when Trump first went to France, threw a big military parade for him to watch and sort of tried doing what the Saudis did. Sort of, he didn't give him an orb, but he got close to it. But now Macron came out and just did the opposite of that. He came out and he said, nope. He denied Donald Trump's claim that NATO allies have agreed to boost their defense spending beyond 2% of gross domestic product, which Trump tried to claim as a victory. Said there was a communique that was published yesterday. It's very detailed. It confirms the goal of 2024. That is all. Also denied that Trump ever planned to pull out of NATO. It doesn't seem that they know quite what to do.
Well, I would say if the Europeans don't know quite what to do with Trump, we'll take a number, because we don't know quite what to do here. And you know who else doesn't? The people working for him. Now, in that clip, you could see, and more of that, you could see John Kelly appearing to be greatly distressed when the president started to attack Germany, and then claiming it was because he only got the pastry and cheese and not the full breakfast. But the fact of the matter is, even his chief of staff has no idea what he's going to say from minute to minute. People have tried various things. I think Macron was humiliated by basically kissing up to Trump, and he still got nothing for it. Merkel has taken a harder line, gets absolutely nothing for it. It's very hard to see how to deal with him, because it's not clear that he knows from day to day. I think he believed what he said about Theresa May on one day, and he believed it when he said the opposite thing the next day.
It is interesting. And, you know, Nayyera, having worked at the State Department, it's a challenge, as Dana said, even for his own administration to respond to it. We had an NBC News report that came out yesterday that the Pentagon is now in damage control mode. An overall message from senior military officials in a series of phone calls to members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization has been that U.S. military bases in their countries will remain open, and troop levels in the region will be reduced. They're having to now assure our allies that we're not going to pull our troops out of Europe.
Right. It doesn't seem that there's much intentionality behind Donald Trump's antics and words other than being a chaos agent, right? That he says one thing one day, another the next, and it's difficult for allies to understand how they should maneuver their diplomacy and their military cooperation accordingly. Typically, this is diplomats will give something to get something, and it does seem that our allies constantly feel like they need to keep giving, and aren't getting anything in return. And like Angela Merkel has done, she's decided that the least she can do now is maintain her own dignity.
Yeah.
And that's the toughest part, is how do you maintain your dignity in the face of someone like Donald Trump, who ultimately is looking to upend everything. The idea that we have a special relationship with the United Kingdom is actually not a given. It's something that Winston Churchill started post-World War II. It's a way for the post-World War II order to stand up against the Soviet Union and then Russia. And we now see that that is no longer a given, that the United States will be an ally for Europe against Soviet-style tactics.
Yeah, it does seem that the special relationship that Donald Trump wants is with Viktor Orban, with Vladimir Putin, with the leader of Turkey, Erdogan. Those are the special relationships he seems to want. The New York Times writes, amid Trumpian chaos, Europe sees strategy, divide and conquer. Most important for the long term, they've begun to believe that underneath the presidential narcissism, sarcasm, and bluster, there is a strategy to undercut European solidarity in NATO and the European Union so the United States can exercise its economic and military power to shape relations with individual countries, just as China and Russia seek to do. Do you ascribe that level of strategic thinking to Trump?
No, I don't. But the Europeans are right to worry, because the absence of strategic thinking, to my mind, is more alarming than the presence of it. Strategic thinking implies that there is a sort of clear thought process.
Right.
The absence of a thought process is actually worse.
Yeah.
And I think we're waiting for the point where the European leaders stop worrying about this and start actually acting on this anxiety.
What can they do?
Well, when Angela Merkel begins to basically increase the size of her military, when all European leaders begin to increase the size of their military in anticipation of American pullouts, then we have a serious crisis. And I don't think we're that far from it.
I have to go to you on this, Nayyera, this weird thing with Trump and female allies. The Washington Post wrote it up that Donald Trump seems to go out of his way to damage the powerful female allies. Angela Merkel and Theresa May raises questions about his relationship with female leaders. One quote from it, the barrage aimed at British Prime Minister Theresa May and Angela Merkel, the Chancellor, prompted diplomats on both sides of the Atlantic to ask why a president who prizes his, quote, great chemistry with world leaders seems to go out of his way to damage two female allies. What do you make of it?
Well, I think this is something, again, that goes to Donald Trump's personality rather than anything broader, thoughtful, strategic effort, because the two female leaders that we have in Europe right now are Germany and the United Kingdom. Germany, under Barack Obama administration, we had a very strong military and diplomatic cooperation. And in fact, that under Barack Obama, the special relationship between the United States was with Germany. It was not with the United Kingdom. Actually, it was under Barack Obama that the United Kingdom started getting threatened with with being at the back end of the deals because of its handling of Brexit. But Theresa May, again, is one of the only female leaders in the world. And rather than propping up these women who have faced insurmountable odds to be leaders in a democratic process, Donald Trump goes out of way to do petty things. Petty things like throwing a starburst at Angela Merkel and saying, don't say I didn't give you anything. Petty things like walking ahead of Theresa May in her own country. Like, these are just the tiny social norms that he has zero interest in maintaining with female leaders, but goes out of his way to shower praise on male dictators like Putin and Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, absolutely. And very quickly, Dana, to you, another part of that article in your paper says that analysts noted the two female leaders have been less willing than others, such as Emmanuel Macron and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, to cater to his ego, with one conservative commentator, Daniel Pletka, saying it's their approach to him that they've been confrontational, and that's not the best way to manage him. What do you make of that?
I don't think there is a good way to manage him, as we've discussed. I mean, this president, long before he was dealing with these two leaders, had a problem with strong women. The unfortunate thing is this probably doesn't cost him any support among his base here at home, undermining our relationship with all of Europe in the long term with intelligence and military cooperation. We're going to be seeing this for years to come as he sort of bumbles into this.
Yeah, no, the amazing thing is that the party of Ronald Reagan, the base of it, seems to have absolutely no problem with any of this. It is pretty extraordinary. Bobby Ghosh, Nayyera Haq, Dana Milbank, thank you all very much. And up next...